good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we are going to talk about designing hair, designing shape to show volume. In this video, what I wanted to do is review one of my students' works, my mentee's work, and she did a head drawing exercise, and I wanted to refine the way that the hair shape was drawn and refine it in a way that we could also show volume. So if you want your portraits and your figures to not only have that beautiful, strong silhouette read, that graphic read and the likeness, but also want to get form, realism, and volume, because we all want that, of course, you definitely want to stay to the end so you can see how I would, some simple techniques that I would use. So if you're new to me, my name is Chris Legaspi. I'm a professional artist, author, and anime instructor. So this piece is beautifully well drawn. So the exercise was more of a planar exercise, more of a construction. So you can see a strong emphasis on the planes and the rhythms, which they look absolutely fantastic.
And before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free Insiders Club. Insiders Club members get first access to these weekly live streams, and you also get access to other live events, and you get discounts on courses and programs, along with access to free lessons and other free content available only to subscribers. So all you have to do is go to www.drawwithchris.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go.
One thing I noticed and wanted to refine was the hair shape. So the hair shape does look great, and I like the fact that it's simple, it's grouped, and it's blocky. But what I would do to refine it is first to emphasize the volume of the hair. So you can see on this side, on the left side, it does that. So these corners kind of line up with the corner of the skull. Right? That's good. So the viewer goes, okay, there's a skull under there, even if the viewer is a layperson. But we have to do the same thing on this side. So you see on this side, there's not much thought to it. And what's there's more thought put into the detail, that little hair shape flipping in, which is a detail, which we want, of course, but we also want to consider the volume. So there it is right there. The top is okay. So now the left side feels a bit more volumetric. And then we do it on the bottom. So on this side, this looks good, but it's more about the shape. What I would do is do some kind of overlap like that. And then another maybe overlap. I don't exactly know, maybe a little detail, but what's important is that these two have to line up in some form. They don't have to be the perfectly straight line, but it has to relate. So you see, so I'm purposely relating it over here, and then boom, 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 then it comes up, and then this. So this shape is correct, but it's not showing the volume. So I would argue let's show some volume first, and still get that little interesting detail, which is that little whoosh at the end. So you see. So you see now we still got the shape. It still looks like the person we want. We got the likeness. We got the strong graphic silhouette read. Oh, it's what's her face with her cool hairstyle. We got that, but now it with correct shape design, now we can kind of feel more of the volume of the head and the volume of the hair. So let's take a look at another example. Beautifully drawn head shape, and planes are clear of a young man with a round, very round face. And what I wanted to call out is how to design the hair shape, give it more volume. And right now, the hair shape is fantastic. It's clear. It works. It kind of feels a little bit like volume, but the way she simplified the details, mwah, perfection, and it's fantastic. The shape, the way with the angles, great. Let's just refine to get more of that volume. So what this is? This hairstyle is actually the classic in America. We call it the bowl cut. You basically take an upside down soup bowl, and then that's it. So this is what we call it in America. We call it the bowl cut. So that's what this young man has, a classic bowl cut. So basically, that's what all I'm going to draw. First, I'm going to draw the shape of his skull, which this artist here, she did a fantastic job drawing his planes and his beautiful round face. But we got to do the same thing with the hair. So I love the straights, they're good, but we can refine them to show a bit more volume. So let's really emphasize the center line. I like this idea. Just by doing that, what that does is it communicates, hey, I'm reinforcing center line, center line, center line, center line, center line. So just reinforcing it at the top. So then we could, before we do the detail, I'll show you about that. So I'm just going to draw a literal bull. That's all I'm going to do because that's really what the barber did. That's what this barber did. Is the barber, the person who cut this young man's hair, um, has done hundreds or thousands of bowl cuts. So there it is, just upside down bowl. That's the thing I want. That's the form that's missing. That's what I want. The volume upside down bowl, and then so you can draw it as many ways as you want. Here, she drew it with some more straights, which I love. I would do the same thing. And then for the bottom, you see this line I drew. So there's gorgeous details, there's little hairs, right? We all want to get the gorgeous detail, but let's maintain the integrity of that line. If we can, even when we draw a detail, we can design it. See, like I'm doing here, you maintain the integrity of the line. You don't have to explicitly draw a line, but you can design your forms and your shapes to maintain the integrity, the illusion, and suggest. That's the game, my friends. The game of realism, really, to win the game of realism is to master suggestion, not explicitly. We don't explicitly draw a bowl. We don't explicitly draw each individual hair. We suggest a form and suggest individual hairs. That's what the realist masters do. That's why we love realism. It's not what you see that we love. It's what the artist chose to leave out. Okay, so now we got the bowl. It's rocking and rolling. I'll just show you how to do this big clump of hairs. This big clump in the middle has volume. I'm just going to suggest a little bit of that turn out. But what I really want is to reinforce the bowl. So I'm gonna do that with this. You see, I design it to point that way to reinforce the bowl, to bring this S curve up to reinforce the curve of the head, whoop, curving back. And then I'm going to put another thing right there, little corner, and maybe do this thing kind of here to reinforce center line. Boop, 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 boop. So that's all design. I took what I saw and I designed it to communicate what I want to communicate. So that's the name of my game. You see, that's what the form shadow would look like when I add tone. So that's the game, my friends. Really, this is the thing I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with shapes. When I see it, I go, oh, okay. I immediately know how I could make that shape better to communicate one or two or three or four things, which I talk about all the time on this channel. How to use design to communicate more with less. What I want to do now is just go through a couple of examples and show you how I would design the hair to show volume and simplify and suggest detail. Well, here we have an example here that has pretty crazy hair and not a lot of it. So you might be wondering, oh, Chris, how can we possibly show volume here? So first, I'm just going to quickly sketch the shape here. So do more of a shape-based drawing, just very quickly. And forgive me, I'm using my tablet here. My longtime viewers know I have pretty bad luck with drawing on Wacom tablets. So the exercise that you saw my students work, my mentees' homework exercise, there was more of a planar-based drawing. So I'm going to do more shape-based here. Really a combination of both. I always kind of do both. Okay, so we got kind of the shell of the hair, very rough, very sketchy. I don't want to develop it too much. What I do want to do is now show you how I would design the hair. So first, let's get these bangs. That's a big part of it here. So let's just drop these bangs in because I need to see the hairline. So I don't know where it is. So I have to guess. So these bangs will help me guess. I'm just going to put it right there for now. Right there. She got kind of a thing here, and her eyebrows kind of make the proportions a little bit tricky. So instead of drawing all these wispy hairs, I'm just going to kind of draw a kind of a helmet-y shape because that's the form I want. So this hair is kind of stuck to her head. It's kind of this short hair and then some of these wispy details. I'm just going to draw them as wispy details because that's less important to what I want, which is the volume, which I already have. It's kind of like his kind of little helmet. It's kind of like a little bit like that bowl cut. Not quite, but it's very tight. Then these are all kind of wispy details, but we'll see how we can unify them, organize them. Okay, so let's get these bangs to work. So these bangs is basically a very graphic shape already. So all I got to do is add suggest, couple of detail, erase it out, whatever. So this is the hard hairline, so that's clear. So this is the shape I want, but what I'm going to do is try to draw these little wispies as bunches. So that's a bunch, and this is a wispy. It's a single strand of hair, but I'm gonna draw it as a thick bunch of hair. But you see, I still maintain that integrity, that whoop, that curve, and then it overlaps the ear, so it adds depth and form and volume and coolness. And then I'm gonna overlap the ear of these wispy hairs back here. But you see, I draw them like that. I don't go like that. I do the form first, and then I suggest the detail. Same with this backside here. I'm considering that's all one unit. I don't draw the backside like that. I go whoop, one thing. It's one bunch of hair. I just happen to see some of it on the left, some of it on the right. And then, of course, I would hit and emphasize the overlaps to show depth and volume and coolness. That's cool. It's my bias. My bias is to make things pop forward, pop off the paper, off the canvas. That's my bias. That's what I like. It's my aesthetic. And then over here, so these are all clumps. These are all small clumps of hair, but I care more about the mass. So even, yes, I'm starting to suggest clumps of hair. I'm I'm making sure that they lay, that they sit, that they feel like they are one big mass, which they are. So I can't even see this other ear, so I'm just going to ignore it in shadow, but then, kind of suggest a bit of the clumps on this side and make sure that left to right is good. So we can't just draw one ear higher than the other. That's not good. We want to make sure they relate meaningfully in a way. Both the jaws relate. Okay, so that's good. So back to the hair. So this top part, we're really done. So we have the ball with some clumps and some volume. Now I just got to maintain this ball. So watch this. I want to maintain this line. I'm just going to go clump, 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 wispy, big clump, long wispy, and then the clump, as long as it kind of sits along this axis, this curved axis, and reinforces the main axis, which is the big clump on top of her, the big massive hair on top of her skull, coming out of her skull, you see. There it is. You see, there it is. So even though lots of wispies, you can feel the overall volume. I don't have to, even in line, if I were to mass it in, it would look even more 3D, would feel even more 3D. It's not quite, it's very flat and graphic, obviously, but you can see the thought, all the clumps are, and they're organized. I didn't just draw a bunch of hair. I organized them into a thing that I want to communicate, which is I want you to feel this big volume of massive volumetric object, hair, on top of a big round eggy volume form thing, human head. So you see volume on top of volume, but the shape design reinforces my original intention, which is to communicate volume. Okay, one more example here. So men's hairstyle, similar to what we saw, lots of wispies and details, but I'm going to show you how to ignore those details and draw a nice, communicate beautiful volume only with line and shape. Let's start with the male head. So he has a cool head shape. It's a cool photo, beautiful photo. It's a gorgeous photo, and he has a very beautiful head shape. And I always encourage to exaggerate the head type. So he is. He's very long, rectangular, angular, long chin, angular, rectangular, young. You know, kind of idealized, handsome. Ethnically, he's got some cool European ethnic flavor to his face. Very cool. Be honest, I I don't know too much about European culture. Obviously, I'm an American, Asian descent, but raised in America. So forgive me, my European viewers here. but I am learning. I just know, you know, I know the great European realist masters. There you go. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself here. Let me erase what I just did because skipping ahead. So let me first add the 2D graphic shape mask, long, tall rectangle, right? So already it kind of looks like him. Let's get my center line in because you know I'm obsessed with that. Vertical and horizontal center. I'm obsessed with that. Get me here. Difficult for you to draw. Center line the eyes, center line on the plane of the nose, center line the mouth. Let's go back. What I want is I just want to quickly lay in or suggest, block in, lay in where his features would go. Because what I want to do is get to the hair mass. We need information on the face so we can kind of see what we're working with here a little bit. And I just love this beautiful highlight on the corner of his cheek there. It's so cool. Hairline, we can clearly see. This part, we can clearly see. So now we have two big masses, basically. And you saw me do this already. So this thinner mass, but it's stuck to the head, still a little tiny bit of mass. And I could exaggerate the mass or downplay it as much as I want. And then, of course, obviously, we have this big mass here. First, I'm just going to try to get the outer shape, but I also want to note the feeling that I want, which is it's a thing that's wrapping around the skull. Definitely don't want to lose track of our scully there. It's a thing, it's a form, it's a volume wrapping around the skull. So I definitely want to make it feel roundy, volumetric, scully, volumetric, scullometric. If that's a word, it's not. I just made it up. There you go. There you go. There you go. So you see, it already looks like him. It already has volume. You know, I'm skipping ahead. Okay. So I drew this shape. You see, I drew it quickly. Obviously, this angle is important because that's his part, but it also suggests a corner of the head. So do these. Notice when I draw them quite boxy because I want you, the viewer, to see this and go, oh, he's trying to tell me that there's a form. Whenever you see a corner or a boxy corner, the human eye goes, oh, form. That's the way it is. uh, Boxy corners is the secret magic sauce to getting realism, my friends. Is you have to sneak them in sneakily. Okay, so it's a corner. This is a turn of a corner, but notice the corner is near the center line. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of a little bit of an accident. And then there's no corner here, but it's a long tapering curve. So it's going whoop. And then there's a little bit of a corner here, which I see in the reference. I'll show you what I'm seeing. It's right here. Boop. And then, and obviously, and then boop. And by the way, I have a very good video on how I see straights and curves and hair. So you see, that's basically all I'm doing. Corner, box, form. When you see corner boxy drawing, you go, oh, that must be form, 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 form. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, there's form here. And then I'm going to trick you by adding suggesting detail. So I'm going to trick you by adding lumps. So you notice I draw this curve, but the curve, I don't just blindly draw this curve. Try to draw the mass that I see. So here's the mass. I don't just blindly draw the mass. I design it to feel like it has volume because I want it to feel like this, like it's wrapping around the cylinder. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I do. I design everything. So I designed this clump. There's a clump over here. Over here on the reference. There's a little clump over here, you see? And I'm just designing this way, kind of following the rhythm of the clump, but I'm more care about describing the volume. Volume, 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 volume. Same with these little clumps here on the side of the head. I'm just going to ignore them and just treat them as things, volumetric things wrapping behind. And that's all I'm doing, really. I'm just taking the big mass of hair, then taking smaller clumps and then designing them to feel like they wrap around, up and around, up and around, up and around. So I'm basically saying to you over and over again, volume, 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 egg, curve, volume, wrap, curve, egg, volume, volume, volume. And if I do it enough, you can't help but look at my drawing and go, wow, look at that beautiful 3D feeling. Oh my God, it just pops off the paper. Wow. he must have copied the details correctly. No, nope. We design details, and that's the end of this video. And that's a good stopping point. Thank you for joining me, my friends. You can see I can do this all day, but I hope you understand the point is that we don't copy, we design, and even when we need to do interesting shapes like hair masses and hair detail, we want to consider and design the shape to suggest the main thing, which to me is volume. So thank you for watching, my friends. I got lots of free resources and videos. I got a full head drawing program, coaching with me. You get access to I got 32 weeks of foundational drawing, composition, color, and painting, and you can get critique videos like this every week if you want to work with me. And I'm only taking a few students every year. So if it's open now, you can sign up. If it's not, you have to join the waiting list. So go check it out. I got lots of free resources as well on my website, www.drawwithchris.com. Go check it out. Lots of free stuff. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.